Hey guys, I hope you had a fun time doing that first lesson. I hope it was really easy for you. Now we're going to go ahead and get more complicated and have some fun with isometrics part 2. But before we do, I thought you might want to have some fun checking out the Harris house. All right, so all the other teachers have been showing off their pets. These are my babies right here. We've got our spring crops finally coming in, and we're so excited to have our arugula and kale and bok choy and carrots and what else? Cilantro. Everything's starting to finally sprout, so we're excited over here. All right, here's my favorite part of the Harris house. It's the studio where we make it all happen. Papa's creating the familiar smell of sawdust. Smelling good. Do you want to say hi to all the legacy students, Mr. Harris?
Sawdust and incense.
Sawdust and incense. It's a beautiful day. All right, so here we are on isometrics and part 2. Before we start sketching today, get your same tools ready, your pencil, your colored pencils, and your isometric grid. And just wanted to clarify what I mentioned last time about having 3 dimensions. I thought I should show you on the grid itself that when you're sketching, this vertical is your x-axis, right? And then here, I'm sorry, your y-axis, forgive me. And then you would have here your x-axis. And then your depth is your Z here, okay? So hopefully we're getting to start seeing those things. This is one of my favorite lessons because you can see we can get away from our basic cube shapes and basically have an infinite possibility before us. So I'd like to start off with our 2x2 cubes just as a warm-up. This looks similar to the one we did last lesson with our Cubert stair steps, except quite a bit smaller. So I think it would be smart. I'm going to use a pencil today so you can see how we're going to subtract from our basic cubes. But could you give me a set? Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do 5 of those 2x2 cubes if we could. So if I could go 2x2, upside down V, right side up V. I'll have to press a little bit harder so you can see on the video. 2 tall for each wall, just to refresh our memory. So we're going to do this 5 times. You ready? Twice. And thank you guys for tracking along with me. And the nice thing about having a video format is if I'm going too fast for you, you are welcome to pause it at any step and get caught up to speed. But I thought it'd be nice to have it filmed in real time. 3 blocks, 4 and 5. We want to make sure we can always see the top surfaces of these cubes. Okay, so what I'm going to start with today is taking these basic forms and basically teaching you that you are free to turn them into any other shape you want. I tell students a lot of times with architecture, you can build a building that's a box or a rectangle, but that is no fun. So we're going to have some fun doing some accent pieces on here. The first one I want to start off with is similar to what we did last time. However, I want to show you that we're going to basically carve out 1/4 of this block. We talked about last time how this was 1, 2, 3 out of a possible 4 sections. So if I were to chisel out this right surface, and I would see here the 1, 2, 3 sections. What I want to do is take this line back and cut this top surface in half and cut this side surface in half. So in essence, what I'm doing, let me shade it for you. Sometimes it's helpful for students to see with color rather than just a bunch of lines. What we've done now is we've created a cube that's mostly white, and then we've blacked out this small piece here. I could leave it like this if I wanted to have different tones and shades in whatever building or world. But what I think is fun then is to learn how to completely remove that and subtract that shape. So if you would take your eraser and go ahead and just remove that whole block as if we're taking it away. And going back to what we talked about briefly in our last class, that we're going to replicate and mirror on the front surface what's happening in the back. So here we had 1 tall vertical, and we also had this piece going diagonally up to the right. So that shape is mirrored. And what's happening here is we are cutting out and we carved out that section of block. But what I want to have fun attacking is trying to do different carvings as if we're sculptors. So if we look at this block number 2, let's look at the shape it created on the side first. And what's happening is if we were to go at the midway point of this top surface in here, right in between, and draw a diagonal line from here to here, we could do the same thing on the back surface. So let's go ahead and again, carve this top surface in half into 2 long rectangular boxes, and carve the left surface into 2 long rectangular boxes. And again, now we have this situation where we could remove this whole triangular prism. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to erase. Would we have to do this whole process when we're designing? No, we could go directly and just start with that diagonal and make, again, a parallel diagonal on the back end. But what I think is helpful is sometimes for students just to see what we're actually carving away. So let's add some fun with some color here. If I was to do this sloping surface, I'll keep all the lines parallel to the edge. My bird's eye view is still the yellow top. This will be helpful for many of you that are still just having a hard time differentiating between the graph paper itself and the shapes we've created. So if you want to add some color to this, if you want to do some cool textures, you may as well. So I'm going to do the surface red here, my bird's eye view yellow, and you could do this whole surface blue if you like, or whatever your color of choice is. Now, let's try this one where we're not using the frame anymore. I think you're starting to understand that we can create whatever shape we like. So let's imagine here I went and in this square, I did an edge that curved. So I'm starting along the edge, curving, and then matching here. As long as I do the same thing in the back end, the same slope and the same direction and keeping it parallel, now I have created a really cool convex shape. Okay, so if I want to erase the frame or subtract that box shape, I'm left with this beautiful bull-nosed edge is what it's called in interior design. So this convex, let's try a concave slope. So again, let's try cutting the top surface in half. And let's try cutting the bottom surface, or the left surface, in half. Now if I want to, and it's easier for you, you can just remove that, excuse me. And let's do a happy face curve connecting center point to center point, and then replicate that happy face curve this way. Now it's almost like we've created a skateboard ramp, like that. So forgive me, I think I switched those two in the example, but the concept is still the same. Convex curving out, and concave is like a sloping valley, okay? Now with this one, I want you to understand that we can do any design that we like. So for example, if I wanted to, I could just take an L frame shape here, and I could do a roller coaster bumpity bump. As long as on the back end, I do the same exact bumpity bump with the same amount of curvature, I can create any type of curve design. Now, if that was tricky for you, let's slow down and perhaps show you another way to approach this type of drawing. All right, let's keep practicing, but this time, rather than having our shapes exposed, let's have some internal cuts. So rather than do the 2x2 cubes that we did for the top row, let's now do a 3x3. So I want you to notice we're going to switch gears here. And instead of having just 2x2 with 4, we're going to have a box that has 9 because we have 1, 2, 3 multiplied by 1, 2, 3, which gives us the area of 9 blocks. So let's come down to another row and go up 1, 2, 3, down 2, 3. And then we're going to do a replicate of that with 1, 2, 3 tall this time as well. It's almost like we're making a Rubik's Cube, right? And we are going to do this at least 4 times. So we're going to go up 3, down 3. I hope you're getting really good at these basic cubes. Although I noticed that sometimes I'll get off track and get off my lines because I'm going so fast. But these are just for notes. This is not our final project. So this is going to basically be your reference. And you're going to take all of these designs that we're creating together and be massing them together. So in our next lesson, I'll talk to you a little bit about how designers work when they're coming up with concepts. They're basically pulling from their huge vocabulary of different shape options they have and massing them in different combinations. And that's where the fun creativity comes in. So stick with me a little bit longer on this technical stuff, and then we get the fun of playing with all these different things we've learned to create. All right, so I've got 5 3x3 cubes with each face showing a grid of 9. If you're not sure what I mean by that, if you were to put a little hashtag symbol on the top surface diagonally, I hope that helps you to see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 per surface. Excuse me. For this first example, I want you to go ahead and give me a right side up U shape on the left panel. So I'm going to go around this way, right on my grid, and draw the letter U. And if you can't see that, let me shade it in for you. Basically, I subtracted 2 blocks from the middle here. And on the top surface, if you would, give me an upside down U. So I'm going to do the same, coming back, walking around the path, and carving this out. It kind of reminds me of a big fat 1980s modern chair. Okay. Now right now I've got this black shape and I've got a white square that's inserted. But if we want to take out and carve those, it's similar to that first lesson where we need to determine where the corners are and go back in space. So if I'm going to erase this, take out this white square, if you will, coming in this back corner, go down until your eyes would no longer see it, and start in this front corner going back and creating a flat or floor surface. Then use your colors to go ahead and color coordinate. So we have what our bird's eye view would see, what we'd see from this surface, and then the back end. Pretty cool. Now, if this was a see-through cube, what you would have happening here is this area here. If I had x-ray vision, I could see through and I would see that has been subtracted. So let's try again. We've gone through these. Let's try a concave slope. What if I was to do the same here? So let's do our right side up U and an upside down U. Creating that again. Remove this block. Only this time, I want you to imagine you're drawing a big happy face curve here. Now it might be hidden from sight, but if I slope, imagine it's coming through and sloping this way. And if I was inside and I had x-ray vision, I would slope from this corner to the front. So let's see if you can do a parallel U-shaped curve. Show me some x-ray sight right there. And again, this would be colored in. And it looks as though we would see a little peek of this and a little peek of that. The rest would be hidden from our sight. Unless, of course, we wanted to get fancy and have it asymmetrical. We could also remove this. We decided to change our mind and we wanted to open it up. You could, if you wanted, to connect this happy face to here and open it up. So as you get better with these concepts, you're going to start to see how you can cut off all kinds of shapes, although I just changed this whole guy around. Perhaps that was a little complex for you. Don't feel like you need to chisel off that edge if that got confusing for you. I jumped ahead of myself there. Let's try another one. So before, we've been doing these shapes internally. What happens now if we want to extend the shape and have it come out? So again, let's start off. Imagine we're doing our top U and then reverse it to make an upside down shape. And again, if you're still getting confused with all of these lines, you're welcome to do just a light shading to help you visualize what's there and what's no longer there. I think color and texture is a great way to help your mind wrap around some of these concepts as you're just getting your training wheels taken off today. So we have this shape, and again, let's put on a straight ramp. So we had a square, a curve. This time, if we were to put in a straight diagonal from this corner to this corner, and from the back corner to the front edge, we'd be essentially carving out a triangle. So I'm going to draw the dots here. That's what's happening inside, although we don't see it. So I could erase this framing here. Here we go. And let's see what we would see. Bird's eye view would see this slide, if you will, the side wall. That looks super fun. Now, if we just keep it like this, that's one awesome skill. But what if we want to extend it farther out? So let's say, like in this example here, I take and I continue this line. How do I know where to stop this ramp? Well, I like to figure it out this way. I like to stop until they hit one of these isometric grid lines here. Now, right now, if I was to continue this ramp coming out of my shape, I could erase some of these lines here, make it easier on the eyes. And I have a paper thin ramp coming through. Now, if I don't want to keep it paper thin, right now it looks like I could drive underneath this shape and end up on the other side, if you will. But say like I don't want to do that and I want to create it, then I would take this edge from my ramp diagonally up to the right, and then I could finish off this block. So in essence, I could make this a solid form as well. So I just want you to see the options you have for transforming. I think it's fun to kind of play around and just see, as if you're figuring out a puzzle, all the different things that you could do. Let's do one last one on a cutout with our upside down U concept and a backwards U. And for this one, I'm gonna play around. First of all, I'll remove that framing to help you see better. If you would like to shade in, if that helps. Let's try just doing some type of waveform. So if I was to wave this way, something bumpy. And inside it's doing the same thing, although we don't see it. And if you wanted to continue this ramp down, you could, right? I'll stop it there. Looks like it's going up. So I'm looking at this line over here and I'm making sure that these coordinate, that everything is looking parallel, right? And then we could go ahead and pull this line back. So I need to erase a little bit, maybe recolor. How fun is that? Okay. I just wanted to show you all these fun options so you can get really whimsical with your creations. Now, how about going up from this shape? I started to spill out of it, as you saw. What if I wanted to then go up into the air? Is that possible as well? I don't know. Let's experiment. I want you guys to start feeling free and comfortable to try a couple things. So if I went and continued up this way with a bumpy rail, let's see what happens. Could I do that as well? Sure. Looks like I would have to bring this down. Maybe erase this line so my slide doesn't look like it has a rail in it. All of this would be bird's eye view. And it looks as though this would be my blue edge. And this is wrapping around the back of the shape. So just to start playing around with, taking your cutouts and your carvings, pulling them in different directions, whether it's a down or out, or even making it wider to the side. Let's try one. I'm going to have you design your own shape. So let's see what we could do for this last box before we wrap up Isometric 2. I think what I would do is I erased most of the frame, and the reason being, let's use this as the back edge. And let's use this shape here. Now what I want you to do is from this corner to this corner, create some type of design. So I'm going to do a curve with a come up, and then I'm going to go straight down, diagonal down, vertical. So that's my wonky design. As long as I can replicate this on a parallel edge on this side, I can come up with any kind of cool shapes you want. So if you think of like weird moldings in your house, the same thing could be true. So I'm going to go down, and I'm always looking across this way to stop the design to make sure it's matching up this way. So if I then come up to here, I'm trying to look at this shape across from it. Now it looks like I went vertically down. And then here I did a diagonal down to the left. And then I did a vertical that's about a little bit more than 1 block tall. So again, I'm always looking to see if these match up, because if it's a hard edge versus a curvy, now this one looks off, doesn't it? So I could fix that, and I could either make this one softer, or I could make the other one more pointy. Okay, so that's one way that you can just create any shape you like with your isometric design. One more thing we should try before we go today. What if we wanted to add a whole nother block that's not as wide as something else? So let's talk about that. If I wanted to come in here, let's say I wanted to make something longer. So I'm hoping you're able to start to build up shapes. Let's say I want to do another platform right here, or a rectangle in front. This is just a little tidbit that we're going to get started with probably in the next one. But I could now mass and add another shape right in front of this guy. And we could do all kinds of different wonky shapes together. Okay, good job. Hope that was easy for you guys. And let's take a break before we try some harder pyramidal shapes. Okay, before we wrap up today, I want to make sure we touch on triangular shapes, pyramids. If you wanted to add an obelisk to the top of a building or add some kind of finial to the top of a structure, this is a really fun and easy way to do it. So if you remember, there's different types of pyramidal structures. Let's start off with one, however, that uses a square base, right? So if I was looking down on a pyramid as a bird, I might see something like this, right? So in our isometric grid, let's see if I can explain this. When you're wanting to divide a square and find the center, if you put an X, X marks the spot, that tells you exactly where the center of a square is. And that's important to know because when we design a pyramid, we want the top or the peak to be right above that center point. And then we simply connect the dots. Now, what I hope you're seeing as I just do a quick freehand sketch of this is that we might not see all of the sides of our pyramid, correct? So when we do an isometric view, while the base is a square, as you can see, we're only going to see, once we shade in everything, right, we're only going to see the two surfaces if it's not a see-through shape, okay? We're not going to see that base that's a square. What I also want you to understand is that if I was to cut out something from this, we would continue to see squares. So let's try drawing this together, and I think it'll become clear as you get to sketch it out yourself. So let's go ahead and start off with a 5 by 5 base square. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then from this center V, actually I want you to see this square. So let's go ahead and finish off the base 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by 5. So we might end up erasing these lines later, but at least to start with, you'll know that the base has a square base, okay? If I was to do my X marks the spot like this on my shape, I'd find that that is the direct center of my shape. That means that right on this vertical line is where I want to build up to put the top of my pyramid. Now it's a matter of playing connect the dots. If you like to use a ruler, you may. I'm going to go ahead and freehand it from corner to top and from corner to top. So here I have a glass pyramid, right? We can kind of see through everything that's happening. But if we want to get rid of that, we would need to erase that back line that our eyes could no longer see if it was opaque. Now here's where I think it gets fun. If we were to do a subtractive element and start to chisel out this pyramid, we would need to replicate these parallels. So what I'm going to have you do is draw a line. Let's go up 1 block, 2 blocks high with a parallel line above this edge. And then on my opposite side, could you do a parallel line up 1, 2 blocks tall this way? Now just sketch with me, and I hope your eyes will begin to see it pretty clearly. Let's go up 1 more block and do a parallel edge. So right now what I have basically is a pyramid that has a stripe in it, right? Let's imagine though, I don't want it to be a stripe. So I'm gonna use some shading here again to indicate what's gonna be our solid form. Okay, and then this side as well. And let's say we're gonna keep this part of the pyramid. So just shade with me. I think this will help you visualize. Doesn't need to be a fancy job until our final project, just for the sake of helping your eyes to see what's happening. So right now the dark is the mass, and we have this white square of essentially, or a little, something that would look like this hanging out inside, right? What I want us to do now is remove this slice and pull it out. And the way we're gonna do that is erasing this line back here. And this is gonna go back and create that square again. And if that's not clear to you, let me just sketch over here what we basically just removed. We just carved out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, trying to keep it to proportion for you. Actually, yeah. We removed a block like this from your pyramid, although the sides were what? Slanted, right? So we basically just chiseled and removed this little section out. Let's try it again. Just make sure it's in your mind and clear. So let's go up 1, 2 more blocks. I'm gonna darken my line here, and I'm gonna do that parallel V that we keep seeing going down the pyramid. Make it 1 block thick. Let's try removing another layer of our pyramid. So I'm gonna erase this whole section. Okay, so this is gonna be our platform or the base. In fact, I should erase that line to make it even more clear what we're seeing, right? That looks nicer not having that line right there. And let's do one last final cutout. Now this is going back diagonally, matching the grid. And we're not on the grid at this point. So some students, it gets a little confusing. We're not matching up, but it's parallel to what you'd see next door. So give that a try. Now this one is quite symmetrical, but I want you to play with the idea as well. When we're doing our designs, we don't necessarily have to keep our point in the center, although we could. We could do a couple things. We could put a doorway on this surface, although we should slope it, shouldn't we? Otherwise it looks odd. Let's start with probably something easier for you guys. So go ahead and let's do a base 3 by 3. I did a 3 by 3 base. Now what happens if we put the tip of the pyramid somewhere off center? Let's just see what happens and experiment, be creative for a second. That's kind of fun. So we could do something very odd as we play around and get comfortable with this. I'm gonna erase my back line. Let's try putting another one slanted this way. Okay, so all different ways that we could create these pyramid structures, okay? So next up, we're gonna start with some arches in our next class. Hope this was easy and fun for you guys. Have a great day.